Call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the school board, May 16th, 2016. We do have a quorum. Can we start, Rick, by having you review the agenda for us?
Certainly can. Tonight's agenda, we will remind the board as well as community members, we had two meetings since our last regular meeting in April. We had a special meeting on April 25th where we took action on the 4 field turf projects as well as some additions at the high school that were not approved at the previous April meeting, and then we had some informational updates. At May 2nd, the board met in a work session. At that time, we talked again about construction as we geared up for construction, and also our next-gen EPS, which is our strategic initiatives moving forward. As we look at tonight, we'll be approving the minutes from those meetings. We'll also be some great recognitions, and we'll be I'll try that with no mic. That didn't work so well. So anyhow, back to the story. We had the special meetings. We had a work session that the board participated in. The approval of minutes. We have some recognitions tonight, and we will take care of that business as soon as we move through this agenda. We do have time for a hearing from members of the audience. We have a variety of consent agenda items, a little bit different for board. Anything that's been a routine item, we've moved to the consent agenda. I'll hit those in greater detail at the time of the meeting. Again, these are routine items that we take care of on a regular basis. Many of them relate to fees and activities that are going to occur in the 2016-17 school year, as well as a variety of gifts and field trips as we gear up for the following year. As it relates to reports, we'll receive an update from our leadership team around some of the work going on with our construction project, as well as planning for the 16-17. We have a variety of policies that we're moving forward that the policy committee is asking for the board to consider in discussion. The action items will include the schematic drawings from the early ed, 2 items around guiding change documents. These are our problem-solving documents. First, around the daily schedules that we'll be looking at for the fall of 2017, as well as taking a look at new school start and end times as it relates to when we start our school day and end our school day as it relates to transportation. We'll start talking about that process. Those decisions won't be made until fall 2016. We'll get an update on some leadership positions, and then again move into more work on the construction side, approving some furniture, a lot of technology purchases, and then the board will move into a closed session as the school board administration meet to talk about the negotiation parameters for contracts that will be coming due July 1, 2017, and that will conclude tonight's meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Before we get into the agenda, we have 2 items that were walked in. One is a change to the personnel recommendations. Can I get a motion to substitute the walked-in personnel recommendations for the ones under 5A?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of replacing the walked-in personnel recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. That is now our new personnel recommendations. We also have a walk-in for unrequested leave recommend. Can I get a motion to add that item 7H?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is passed, and that now becomes 7H. Don't let me forget it. All right. Next, we have approval of the minutes. You're getting ahead of me. We have the minutes from the work session of April 11th, 2016, the regular meeting of April 11th, special meeting of April 25th, and the work session of May 2nd. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Now we are on to recognitions.
And we have a variety of recognitions at Spring, the Utopians. We'd like to invite them up to the front if they could come forward. This is our Southview Middle School academic triathlon team, and this is a first for me. And we're going to learn more about what they've been all about. But we congratulate them for their state champions in the area of academic triathlon. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just if we can go down the row, hand you the mic, first and last name, and something that you really like about being part of the academic triathlon team.
I'm Calvin Steven, and something I like is just getting to practice and try and compete with friends. I think it's fun.
My name is Chloe Maynor, and one thing that I like is the variety of activities that you do at an academic triathlon tournament.
My name is Lucy Yang, and one thing that I really like about academic triathlon is all the puns you can include.
I'm Michael Dawson, and one of the things I like is just making a lot of new friends and bonding with your teammates and, really getting to know them.
Okay, so let's talk about this puns thing right away. Tell us a little bit about some of the activities that you're involved in. There's 3 types of events, as I understand, and if you could just talk a little bit about those.
Okay, so there are 3 basic types of events. The first one is a combination of 2 types of face-offs. You have the written portion and the oral portion. Second type is mind sprints, where they're like short 8 to 10 minute activities that usually involve creativity and creative processes, etc. Third part is Party in a Box, which has been the hardest for us this year. It's where you create a skit in 40 minutes, and it's harder than you might think.
So, and you compete with teams from out the metro area? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we have our regional meets, and they are with teams surrounding the metro area. And at our regional tournament, there were, I believe, about 6 teams, each comprised of about 5 people.
And talk a little bit about that state championship. When you had that experience, how did you think you were going to take it to the top, or did you have a feel of how things were going?
Well, I think that we didn't think we were going to win. We were kind of not sure, but we thought that we did well at some of the things, but we weren't so sure. But we were glad that we won.
So when you got that feeling that you were a champion of this whole thing, what was that first feeling that you had?
We did it.
Pretty cool, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, on behalf of the entire school board and administration and all the students in the school district, we congratulate you on this great accomplishment. We have a picture that we want Sir Patzloff, a board member, is going to recognize you with.
Congratulations, you guys. I've had the pleasure of watching these kids for 3 years as my daughter participated as well, and they were amazing, and it was just such a wonderful thing to see them go to the state tournament, and then to hear them they won was just, we're so proud of them. So congratulations, you guys.
And next, we'd like to recognize our math team members. So I'd ask Coach Alex Galt to come up, as well as I think Kendrick Belland is here.
Is Michael here?
And Michael Tang is not able to hear today, but Coach, tell us a little bit about this whole experience and a little bit about the team that, again, brought back a state championship. Some very great, amazing accomplishments.
Yeah, we came in second this year, second to Wayzata. Competitive mathematics is kind of a fun thing to coach because when I was student teaching, my advisor said, you're going to have to explain math to kids who don't get it as well as you do. And coaching is just the opposite. I have to be in a room full of kids who get it way better than I do. And Kenrick is one of those kids, and Michael Tang is also one of those kids. Both of them had perfect papers on the invitational event. The top 50 students in the entire state of Minnesota are invited to compete in that event. Michael and Kenrick sat on stage and had to answer problems with a timer and write their answers on a whiteboard and hold them up, and it looked terrifying. And Michael won that competition, which is called the Math Bowl. And then Kenrick and Michael also both had perfect papers for their individual events for the tournament. So they tied for first place at the state tournament for Minnesota.
Kenrick, let's talk a little bit. So tell me about your interest in math. You're a senior. What is this math going to take you someplace? What's the next steps?
Well, I'm going to the University of Minnesota right now. I'm in the College of Science Engineering, so I'm definitely looking at something in math. Right now, I'm looking to probably double major in math and Latin, but we shall see.
Okay. So talk about the value, because this was all quick response work that you end up doing, and it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of problem solving quickly in your head. How do you think that's going to help you going forward? Maybe not just in college, but just in your work world, or how do you see this as being a real benefit, this type of competition?
Well, I mean, I obviously see myself ending up in a career in math, so it will help a lot there. And just with anything, like planning for school in a given day, or like everything is a problem that needs to be solved to some degree. So that should help with everything. And the preparation for these competitions is extremely thorough because you have to address every possible problem. So that's obviously helpful in all sorts of walks of life.
Great. Well, Kenrick, congratulations. Coach, congratulations on another very successful year, and we want to take time to recognize you officially. You didn't get that. And finally, we want to recognize the Japanese team. Japanese team members here. Here they come. Coach, you want to come right over here? Talk a little bit, Coach, about this whole competition. Again, might be relatively new for the community and the work that they do that's involved in this high-end competition in the area of Japanese language.
Actually, Edina High School has been doing really well at a competition called J-Quiz, which is at the state level. And these 3 students actually participated as this group last year, and they couldn't win. So this time they had to win, right? So they were really motivated from the very beginning, and I was very lucky to be able to coach these students. And then after winning the state level, they moved on to the national, and they ranked 10th among 24 teams. And all the many teams are from like California or Virginia. They are all really good schools, and so in that sense, they really did really well, I think.
I can feel your passion for this competition, so it's great to have you on here. In name and a little bit about the competition. That how do you enjoy it? What drives you to get involved in this?
My name is Leif Rolfson, and I find language a fun thing to explore. So having an excuse to really be challenged in that field is a lot of fun. And by proxy, when you're studying a foreign language, you learn about the country that it's from. You get to try a lot of food. So it was an enriching opportunity.
Great.
Hi, I'm Catherine Yang, and
Catherine, talk a little bit about last year. You must have had a passion to come back and do better on this, and the excitement that you had when it was a championship.
quite honestly, not really.
Okay.
She's the special one on the team.
You're the special one on the team. What does?
No, it's just that I've been studying Japanese longer than they have been, and I can't really say I'm super motivated to do it.
Because it's been part of your world.
It's not really it kind of comes naturally. So, and then there's we have to participate, we have to win, and in the sense it was we have to win this competition. So it's okay.
So you'll be part of that. Okay.
I'm Monica Pinkerman.
Uh-huh. And Monica, talk a little bit about the experience of going to nationals. And you knew that it was going to be a lot of quality teams out there. What was that feeling going out there and then finding out that you can compete at that high level?
Well, when we won J-Quiz as captain, I was really excited because we got third last year, and then this year we finally made it to first. And I was really excited. And being able to compete against the higher level students at Japan Bowl was really exciting because we got to see that there is more beyond just what is at J-Quiz, because after you finish J-Quiz and you sort of know what it's like there, you're just sort of oh, I want to compete at a higher level, I want to do better, because for me Japanese is a really big passion. And so being able to just have that sort of those people above you to sort of strive for and work harder and better was really invigorating and a lot of fun, I think.
Well, congratulations, coach, team. Again, amazing season, and we can commend you on a great competition here at the state level, but also at the national level. Great accomplishments. Let's get a picture. And finally, we'd like to ask Jack Rice to come forward. Jack didn't win anything at the state level. He didn't win anything at the national level. And Jack does have his high school diploma already. But we want to recognize Jack as an amazing community member. Jack has been involved in this community in so many ways at the city government level, Jack, and I know you've just been a city advocate and Edina Public Schools advocate your whole life, pretty much. This past, about a year, better than a year.
19 months and 10 days.
19 months and 10 days.
I looked at my calendar.
Jack began working with us as we were on the project of trying to find land for the new bus transportation garage, and Jack was instrumental in locating some land and helping us negotiate that deal and volunteered all his time in that. It's an area of expertise for him when he was fully employed before he became a professional golfer, but you just gave your time, Jack. What was the passion and the interest for you to give that kind of time to help us accomplish this big task that we had of finding land in the city of Edina?
Well, you know, when I was growing up, my parents were always involved in community activities. One of my dad's favorite quotes was from Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "Every person should give some of his or her time to the upbuilding of the profession and the community to which they belong." And I've always remembered that, and it's, you know, it's kind of fun. It's kind of easy to do, really, once you get involved in doing it. And so that's where it came from. And also, if you ever get any of our Christmas cards with our grandchildren, my wife Edie and I go to the first day of school. We're down there. We want to see the kid on the school bus. And of course, when they were little kids, that was fine. But now that our senior in high school, of course, didn't want to be in the picture this year, getting on the school bus. That's kind of dorky, I guess. But, you know, it's a great feeling to me in America to see, I think of myself going home, there's millions of school buses all over the country bringing these kids to great public schools, and off they go. They get on happy, and that's, you know, it's a strength of our country, as I think. So that's one of the reasons I was here, Rick.
Well, Jack, we can't thank you enough. I mean, it was amazing, and the negotiations were not easy. It was challenging, and you were just a master at it. And on behalf of the board and the community and staff, we do want to commend you and thank you for your work. And I'm going to ask Leny Wallen-Friedman to present.
Thank you very much.
May I say couple more things? You can't ever get a politician away from the microphone. Really, the school board should be commended. This is a team effort, and the school board and the staff and Rick and Margot and Eric and I will say this also for the school board, they were very nice in allowing us to bring on board some outside experts that were very, very helpful. Working with the World Architects is a great pleasure. We had a couple of appraisers helping us. We had a couple other people. Really, most importantly, Barbara Ross, our attorney, was a specialist in this particular area, which was very helpful to us all along the way. But the board was firm, and they were courageous, and they made these are some tough decisions. These are tough, big decisions to be made. And I can tell Kendrick, if he wants something to do, he can go into real estate, because math, we need the guys like it. I happen to know his father very well, and his father's very smart in real estate also. So, Kendrick, you don't have to worry about just going into real estate. It's been my pleasure to do this. I also want to, if I may, just give a shout out to Kathy Sella, who was a big part of this going along. And we had coffee 15 times together, looking at the site and talking around. So it's been fun to do it, and I'm happy to do it. But don't ever, if Rick Dressen ever calls you and says, "I just want to have a little conversation with you in my office," now, what's one little favor I want to ask you? That was 19 months and 10 days ago.
Next item on the agenda is hearing from the members of the audience. We've got a few ground rules for hearing from members. We do have a policy 206 in which we request that people who speak do not make comments about individual employees or board members. If you have a question or a comment about an individual, submit it to Dr. Dressen. We ask that you limit your conversation to 3 minutes, and we do have, I think, about 9 speakers tonight, so if somebody who has come up before you has said whatever you're going to say, if you could just keep your comments a little bit briefer, that would be great. We typically do not have discussion on the issues that are presented. In the event that there are questions that come up, someone will get back to you. We will start with Mr. Anselmo.
Thank you. I'm glad it's alphabetical. I get to get out of here earlier. My name is Dario Anselmo. I'm a resident here in Edina. We have 3 kids in Edina Public Schools. I'm here to talk about the subject of the turf fields. I've been sort of monitoring and watching the conversation this. I've been meeting with some of the people on it since it's been an active topic in the community. I'm an occasional candidate for public office here, and unlike you, I've not won, so I don't have to do the hard part here. But my concern is that there looks to be a big issue with some potential liability. Having 3 kids in the middle school and having coached on those fields, I understand some of the issues about the heat and temperature. There's some other issues that relate to the toxicity of the chemicals and the products that are in the crumb rubber. That's a concern. It sounds like it's a minor concern, but it's still a concern. And I think it's something that's worth giving a second look. When I look at the price and the alternatives, and I had a meeting today to look at some of the things that come from companies, whether in the field turf or green play, there are some organic options that a place like Edina, that typically is a leader on these things, might want to consider. It's more money. I'm not big in wanting to spend my money or other people's money, but it's something we want to look at. The way I look at it, from a business standpoint, it's a small investment for a big and important issue, our children, safety, and future liability. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Ms. Flanagan.
Hello.
Yep, you're good.
Hello. I'm Cammie Flanagan. How are you this evening?
Good. Thank you.
I'm going to take these off because I can't read it. In June and December of 2014, the district engaged in a survey of random households in Edina. This survey was conducted by Morris Leatherman Company. I'm going to use the December results for reference. According to the survey results released, when asked what they most liked about Edina Public School, 26% said excellent academics, 19% high quality education, 19% good teachers, 14% good academics, 11% variety of programs, 4% sports, 8% scattered, 2% unsure. When asked about financial management, 22% excellent, 50% fair, 50% good, 17% fair, 4% poor, 6% unsure. When asked about a tax increase for facility needs, safety and security upgrades came in first at 74% supporting, 23% opposing. Athletic fields and space improvements came in last, with 53% supporting, 45% opposing. On page 6 of the same survey, there is a graph for the reaction to the plan. Here are the results of the graph. 48% good idea, 25% good idea strongly, 17% bad idea, 8% bad idea strongly, 3% unsure. When asked what the component leading to the no vote is, artificial turf came in at 34%. Flexible furniture, 19%, and bus garage, 16%. On December 8th, 2014, at the school board meeting, 2 options for fields were discussed. Option 1, approximately $7.3 million, replace grass fields with turf, 2 at East and 2 at West campus. Replace EHS tennis courts, replace turf and track at Kuhlman. Option 2, approximately $5 million, replace grass fields with turf, 2 at East and 2 at West. Replace the EHS tennis courts, a $2.3 million difference. In a summary of board meetings referenced in the January 12, 2015 meeting, on the December 8th, the board discussed the 2 options for the fields, and the board directed the administration to include additional options, in parentheses, replacement of turf and track at Kuhlman, only if within the budget. On January 27, 2015, the district recommended the $7.75 million option. At the May 15, 2015, in the Next Generation Facilities Concept Proposal, under Invest in District Infrastructure, outdoor athletic space improvements to improve safety of playing surfaces, address accessibility concerns, and meet growing demand for outdoor competition space, including repairing or constructing turf fields at East and West Campus. On May 15th, the referendum passed with 3,785 yes votes, 2,869 no votes. Roughly 10% of the population voted. The numbers speak for themselves. When you asked the people what they wanted, they overwhelmingly said security enhancements. Artificial turf fields came in last among things desired, and in fact, when asked, would cause 34% to vote no. The district threw out the survey results and chose artificial turf, even though the stakeholders said different. I spent 6 hours over 2 days sitting at an artificial turf information table at Jerry's last week. The two comments I repeatedly heard were, "What's wrong with grass?" and "Why won't the school board listen?" Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Afed. Afet?
Hi. First of all, I appreciate you giving me the time to speak in front of you tonight. My name is Katie Offit, and I am the head girls soccer coach at Edina High School. I also come in with a very unique perspective that I'm not only a resident of Edina, but a mother of school-aged kids in Edina as well. I would just like to address the crumb rubber turf from my perspective, as I think it is an extremely unique one. Do I think crumb rubber is dangerous? Absolutely not. To me, the fact is simple. Science isn't there to prove anything other than the fact that it's playable. Do I think that there are more injuries on crumb rubber? Absolutely not. One of the biggest things that I've been seeing is the argument that you're more likely to have a concussion with the crumb rubber. I can speak directly to that. I have been coaching on the turf at Coleman since its inception. Same thing at Edina High School. Concussions won't be stopped no matter what the playing surface is. And most of the time concussions are from either elbow to head to head, ball to head, hitting the ground. Grass wouldn't stop it. A different form of turf wouldn't stop it. Unfortunately, that's part of the sports that are played on the turf. ACLs, major prevalent injury within soccer. I, in fact, tore my ACL last summer for the second time playing soccer, and I did it on grass. Not to say that it doesn't happen on turf, but it is by no means related or because of the turf. Does the turf get hotter than grass? Have I noticed it? Yes. Do I think it's a problem? Absolutely not. The Women's World Cup team protested playing on turf last summer in Canada. Do I think that they had a right in doing so? Actually, I do. The Women's World Cup team plays at such a higher rate, more physical game of soccer than any high school or college program in the United States. They were also playing in the middle of the dead heat in July. Upper 90s was the air temperature, making the turf probably close to 100 degrees. Edina High School Athletics and Steve Cheetah has protocols set forth if it does get too hot, that we would immediately pull the kids off the turf if that were the case. In my 15-some years of coaching at Edina High School, that has never happened. And I don't think that, I don't see that moving forward. We're in the extreme heat for maybe 2 weeks out of the year for our preseason in August. And we've never had an issue at that rate. My bottom line, my job, other than the soccer piece of it, is to, keep the 100 and some girls in my program safe. Do I think that the crumb rubber turf is doing anything to endanger that? Absolutely not. And in fact, I hope that my 3 kids can someday play on some form of the turf at Edina High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Gustafson. No? Yes? Okay. Ms. Hackett. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll get the microphone thing down one of these days, but thank you for having me. My father, Thomas Graham Jr., who negotiated nuclear and conventional arms treaties for his 30-year tenure in the U.S. government, once said to me, "Clover, everything is negotiable. You just have to find the middle ground." So I sit before you tonight offering that middle ground, offering you a solution where Edina Public Schools gets its new artificial turf playing fields and where the parents and citizens of Edina that are opposed to the use of a toxic substance where their children play get their peace of mind. It is very simple. Because you have stated you cannot wait until the federal study initial results come out at the end of the year to install these fields, your community and my 670 Change.org petitioners demand that you re-look at the alternative non-toxic infills and choose one. We have done our research on the alternatives, and there is one that is tested and vetted and non-toxic. It may not have been around as long as crumb rubber, but it also does not pose the same hazards to our children and environment that crumb rubber does. It is not made of toxic material. It does not heat up the playing surface the way crumb rubber does. It does offer impact safety assurances. It does offer anti-mold assurances. It does offer antibacterial assurances. And it is able to be used with our current vendor field turf. It is the next gen infill. It is the future of artificial turf. It will bear out to be on the right side of history in this debate. Green Play Organic Infill is comprised of a proven blend of coconut fibers and cork. It provides enhanced foot stability and lower Gmax. It yields the lowest surface temperatures of any synthetic turf available within 20 degrees Fahrenheit of natural grass. In addition, Green Play is non-abrasive and 100% recyclable. Green Play is used by schools, colleges, and training facilities across the country. When called by SAFE members for a testimonial on how they like their infill, the following response was given. "It's great, tremendous amount of advantages. We spent 5 years studying this. We didn't think it made any sense to use crumb rubber." Green Play would cost approximately $30,000 more per field. We at SAFE believe that it is a superior product to crumb rubber in every way, and that it addresses our concerns as well as the board's concerns. And I do not believe this particular product was ever considered by EPS, because the vendor rep herself told me that she sent 24 introductory emails to EPS with not one response. Please look into this further. Please consider this non-toxic alternative to crumb rubber. Yes, it costs slightly more, but how can you put a price tag on our environment and children's long-term health? I, for one, do not want my children or anyone else's to be the long-term study that has never been done on crumb rubber. Please take us out of this crumb rubber debate. Be the progressive leaders you claim to be. Think outside the box. Reassess the material as it becomes available to you. Err on the side of caution for our community's sake. Protect our children and environment first and foremost. Use an alternative non-toxic infill. It is the middle ground, and it is the right thing to do for the safety of Edina's children and for the prosperity of this great community. If you do not, please be assured that we will continue to watch you, question you, and hold you accountable for these decisions. We will remember that when you were presented with a choice to protect our children from intimate contact with toxic chemicals, you chose not to. Chemicals which the leading expert in the U.S. on children's environmental health has said there are no safe levels. Does that sound like it's good for the kids? Absolutely not. Work with us, not against us, and we will work with you. Your hands are not tied at this point. We have read of schools that have switched their infill from crumb rubber to an alternative as close as 3 days prior to installation. They paid the upcharge out of an abundance of caution. You can do the same. It does not make their original choice wrong. It just means that they were presented with new information and they acted on it. You can do the same.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Northrup.
Hello. Thanks for having me. My name's Jeff Northrup. I'm in favor of whatever solution you can come up with that gets us the most playable fields in Edina. My understanding is that we don't have any more green grass space. We would love more grass space, but we can't make it out of thin air. So my understanding is that the next best option is turf. And so whatever you guys decide that gets us the most turf fields is what I'm in favor of. Our grass fields that we have are overutilized right now, and they are unsafe. This discussion started a long time ago, primarily from a health and safety perspective. When you walk the district grass fields, they are unsafe for play. And in fact, I believe that last fall, a primary grass surface was taken out of rotation for safety reasons. We don't have enough grass fields to support our current needs. We don't have enough fields of any kind to support our current needs. And our athletes are at risk either due to old turf or bad grass, pitted fields, whatever. I think it's important that I state that I'm not pro-crumb rubber by any means. I'm not pro-cancer. I've got 4 kids in the program that are in the Edina Public Schools. I've read as much as I can about the crumb rubber debate and all the reasonable alternatives. I can't find any research that produces a link between cancer and crumb rubber. I'm not saying that there isn't, I just haven't seen it. Ironically, research has shown significant links between chemical fertilizers and cancer. And yet there's very little scrutiny that's been placed on the organic infills. I'm not opposed to the organic infills. If you guys want to put organic infills on with the same amount of turf fields, I'm all for that, as long as we get the same number of fields as we can get. I did find on the Field Turf website, however, that weeds that grow in organic infill fields are treated, recommended treatment is with chemical fertilizers. So keep that in mind. I'll just leave you with an anecdote. On Monday, April 4th, at recess on a district field, an 11-year-old that I know quite well, she broke her ankle running at recess on a district field. She currently has 8 screws in her ankle as she broke her ankle straight through her growth plate. She'll be able to go weight bearing this week after she gets a 2-inch leg screw taken out of her ankle. So this is a serious issue. The safety issue is very serious to those of us that have field sport athletes, and just encourage you to do what you can to get us the most safe, playable surfaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Schuler.
The right microphone. Hi, thanks for the opportunity to briefly testify. My name is Kathleen Schuler, and I work for Conservation Minnesota. I'm the co-director of Healthy Legacy, which is a public health coalition working to eliminate toxic chemicals from consumer products. And this year, we actually worked on a bill at the state legislature. It didn't pass, but we're going to keep working on it, that would create a moratorium on new fields and playgrounds that use the crumb rubber material until we have better safety data. So we're working on this issue because it's an inherently toxic material, and there's potentially significant exposure for young children and athletes. You probably heard about the Yale University study that showed 96 chemicals, some of which are carcinogens and brain toxins, are found in this material. I believe you received a copy of a letter from Dr. Philip Landrigan that was addressed to me. And Dr. Landrigan is a pediatrician and the Dean of Global Health at Mount Sinai School of Medicine. He's known as the father of children's environmental health. Since 1993, he has highlighted the unique vulnerability of children to chemical exposures. Previously, that wasn't recognized. His letter addresses the health risks to children and athletes from exposure to crumb rubber, including the heat effects and the potential exposure to toxic chemicals, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. The other handout we gave you is our bill fact sheet that highlights some of the studies showing the toxicity within the material. So I just wanted to quote something, one part of Dr. Landrigan's letter. Any level of exposure to known carcinogens or neurotoxins is too much. There are no safe levels of exposure to these chemicals, especially for children. No safe levels. The most effective strategy for protecting children from exposure to chemicals in crumb rubber is to prevent the installation of playgrounds and athletic fields that use this material. So time and time again, we wait for damage to be done before acting. You have the opportunity to proactively protect Edina children and youth from immediate or long-term adverse health effects. I don't know if people remember the issue of the arsenic-treated wood. That was a number of years ago. So we put this wood in playgrounds because it was resistant to rot. And the safety of it was questioned in 1978. But it wasn't taken off of the market in 2004, which meant that there were decades of exposure to children to arsenic-treated wood. And I think we have the opportunity to prevent that happening with the crumb rubber fields. You have a lot of money at stake here in your decision-making, and all the more reason to use the safest material possible and prevent risks and costs down the road. I'm a grandparent. I wouldn't want my grandkids playing on it. So I ask you to take the precautionary path and substitute cork or other natural material for crumb rubber in the new Edina fields to protect children and athletes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Matt Meyer.
Thanks for having me. I'm the president of the Edina Football Association. I've been part of the Football Association for going on 11 years. Currently have a 11th grader that plays football and 8th grade girl that plays on all the district fields during school, cheerleading. You know, when I joined the board, all we talked about was our fields. They haven't been updated in our facilities for 40 years. The field down below by the track, by the high school, you can't even use anymore. So, you know, I support the school board's decision because I know they've put a lot of thought into this, because for 11 years we've talked about it. We've asked you guys to upgrade your fields, and you guys put a lot of time thinking about, you know, what should we do? How should we upgrade? And you finally came to a decision. You know, it is a safety issue across the board, mainly on grass fields. It's also being able to play and jam a bunch of sports and a bunch of games and practices in on grass fields, where you lose about 1,500 hours a year in grass fields from letting them regenerate, rainouts, and a lot of delays and not able to, you know, play or practice. You gain about 3,500 hours on turf fields. Now, if it's crumb rubber or synthetic, my point of view on that is there's not enough proof that synthetic is the right option. We don't know if it hardens over time. We don't know if we're going to have to replace it earlier. There's just not enough facts. With crumb rubber, there's over 100,000 fields that have that, and there are facts that it is sustainable and it's a good option and a good investment. I'm just going to leave with this. A lot of people have said a lot of facts, and you know, the accurate thinking is science is an art of gathering and classifying facts. Separate facts from information. I've heard a lot of information here, but I haven't heard a lot of facts here against. I've heard a lot of information against crumb rubber, but I haven't heard a lot of facts. Separate facts into important and non-important. Assemble important facts in your own way to form a fact-based opinion. Number 4, seek counsel or your mastermind alliances, which you guys have, professionals, if you're struggling with 1, 2, or 3. So my point here is accurate thinking. I believe you guys and gals in the school board have done, because we've been talking about turf fields and improving and facilities for years. We're finally here, and I think you guys put the right time and the right facts into place. You're not listening to information or assumptions. You're putting the facts down. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Seaman.
Hello.
Hello.
Does this one work?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Liz Seaman. I'm a mother of 3 young children and a wife to a lacrosse coach. Before I get started, I just want to say that it takes a lot of courage to stand up here and speak to the school board of one of the top school districts in the state and in the country, for that matter. I think it's important for some of you to realize that. We're not here to give you trouble. We're here because we're concerned about our children, and we elected you to be concerned too. Some of us stand to have young children who will play on crumb rubber for decades. We're asking you tonight to consider using an alternative non-toxic infill for the proposed artificial turf fields. I personally spoke to the head of a private school in Santa Monica, California, who after much due diligence decided to use Field Turf's Pure Fill, which is a cork-based material. Their decision was triggered by the NBC investigative report, pushback from parents, and the head of school's gut feeling that young children should not be exposed to the carcinogens in crumb rubber. They ensured that the GMAX rating of the Pure Fill was the same, if not better, than crumb rubber. They said cork infill is being used extensively in Europe with great performance, as they have been moving away from crumb rubber for about a decade now. They traveled to other towns who had alternative infilled fields and said they looked fantastic. And we have the option to do that here in the Twin Cities as well. In terms of cost, it was about $80,000 more, about a third more money on a field that has the same square footage of a soccer field. And in addition, he said that Field Turf offered a great $0 maintenance program for a few years. Due diligence like this showed that he was listening to the concerns of so many parents. Nearly 700 parents, friends, grandparents, and Edina neighbors have called on you by signing a petition to ask for an alternative non-toxic infill. If you'll allow me, I'd like to read some of their comments. We can't take risks with our children, regardless of the cost. Please listen to all of us who are concerned about the addition of crumb rubber fields. Why expose kids to a substance whose long-term effects are not known when there are so many viable alternatives? Another mom said, "My daughter got this stuff in her eyes, and it was days before her eyes were okay. This is horrible stuff." One person said, "I am signing this because although there may not be substantial proof that the toxins in the turf specifically are the sole reason for medical issues, the more little doses of these toxins that we surround our children and ourselves with equate to a lot of toxins with no one culprit that can be clearly identified." Another person said, "Edina School District, let's be a leader in the country by bypassing crumb rubber and instead putting alternative infill on our fields. Be the district that leads and shows the country what it looks like to listen, learn, and lead." Another person said, "I am a pediatrician and a parent, and I have serious concerns about the use of rubber infill." Finally, another person said, "We are honestly appalled that the school board has abruptly chosen to replace natural playing fields with crumb rubber despite legitimate environmental and health concerns. This is not a matter of helicopter parents being alarmist. This is a matter of public health and environmental cost that the school board should not take as lightly. We ask that the school board please consider the multitude of studies and research and papers and articles being published on a national scale about the actual damage the crumb rubber can do to our land and, more importantly, to our children directly. Find alternatives, think critically about the options, and stop the clock from ticking on the school board's hasty and arbitrary deadline, and listen to Edina citizens and parents of Edina students. Crumb rubber does not belong in or on Edina fields, and the school board should find a non-toxic alternative that doesn't make their students sick and that doesn't cause environmental damage to Edina for generations to come. And finally, one simple but powerful statement. We are paying for this. Why do we not have a say in this? We are not trying to stop the turf fields. We are asking you to use an alternative non-toxic infill. This is a win for the school board, this is a win for our children, and this is actually a win for Field Turf. The workers will be wearing hazmat suits with masks when they install the crumb rubber. Will our children? No.
Thank you. Did Mr. Gustafson show up? Okay, we won't wait for him then. I want to thank everyone for speaking tonight. Although we don't have this as a discussion item or an action item, we do welcome people's comments. Although, as I said in the beginning, we don't typically respond, I'm actually going to break from that tradition a little bit tonight and make some comments about crumb rubber. My comments are based both on my own observations and participation, as well as information that I've received from fellow board members and from administration. But I want to begin by talking a little bit about the history, and then I'll address a couple of the questions that have been raised. So the district's use of crumb rubber dates back to 2004 with the installation of new turf fields at Coleman and at Valley View Middle School, High School. When the decision was made 12 years ago to put that product in, it was an informed decision that represented the best available option at that time. Both of these fields have been great successes. They are popular with coaches, athletes, and the general population of students. They have received greater use than was originally anticipated and have outperformed their specifications. They've been low maintenance and have had excellent playability. And I do apologize, I think I'm going to exceed my 3 minutes. These synthetic turf fields have been in use for a period in excess of the product's expected lifetime, and the district has gotten its return on its investment. As the field at Coleman sees considerably more play than the counterpart at the high school, we have made arrangements to replace it using funds that are not from the referendum. With regard to the new synthetic fields, the district began examining its options with regard to the outdoor program and competition spaces approximately 7 years ago, with a feasibility study in 2009 and a task force in 2010. One reason the district began examining its options was because of statements by stakeholders that there was a need for additional field space, that our current fields were not adequate to meet the community needs. Study and deliberations continued through 2014 and included obtaining input from the district's athletic department, community education department, the community, as well as an independent architectural firm and a civil engineering firm. In 2014, the district convened a community task force to study district-wide facility needs, and that's what led to our referendum. That task force assessed these studies and affirmed the need for additional synthetic turf fields to address safety and maintenance concerns, as well as to meet the growing needs for such spaces. During this process, various board members on multiple occasions have pressed for careful consideration of natural grass as an alternative to synthetic turf. Ultimately, through continued discussions and assessment of options, district administration and consultants continued to recommend artificial turf as the best solution to address these concerns. Board members continued to indicate to the administration that we were satisfied and that we believe they were proceeding in a reasonable fashion. This process culminated with the board's approval of a review and comment document, which was then submitted to the Minnesota Department of Education in January of 2015. This document outlined in detail the projects for which we were seeking authorization from the community. The document, which was published and is still available on our website, notes that the proposed projects would include outdoor field and court enhancements at both the district's east and west campuses to improve the safety of playing surfaces, address accessibility concerns, and meet growing demand for such spaces. The document then went on to explicitly state that the district intended, among other things, to convert 4 worn-out natural turf fields with synthetic turf to accommodate a wider range of activities. Following the community's approval of the referendum and proposal in May of 2015, the district proceeded with construction planning. Having been aware that there are questions raised in other parts of the country about crumb rubber, the board facility committee, and we have a series of committees set up to work underneath the board, our facilities committee, including a working group of committee members, began reviewing turf options in the fall of 2015. In December and January, the facilities committee carefully researched and reviewed the existing literature on the subject of crumb rubber and alternative infills. The committee made reasonable efforts to identify and review all studies on this issue. A compilation of this research is available on our website. The Facilities Committee's final review of the choice of synthetic turf occurred on January 21st, 2016. At that meeting, a preference for natural grass was again raised by a committee member, and again the determination was made that the best option was synthetic turf. The possibility that crumb rubber could pose health or environmental risks was discussed, as well as considerations of durability, cost, maintenance, and along with the various turf options. In studying the issue, the Facilities Committee came to an understanding that is best summarized in language that was published last month by the Minnesota Department of Health, and that is, exposure to chemicals in crumb rubber is likely to be small and unlikely to increase the risk for any health effect. The Facilities Committee also heard from and questioned the project's architect, the construction manager, and a civil engineer on the issue of crumb rubber versus infill options. All agreed that crumb rubber was a well-tested, safe, and appropriate product to use for this project. The committee was also informed that the crumb rubber product currently being installed is its 3rd generation, while many of the anecdotal concerns and media reports raised have been in reference to prior generations of the turf. The committee was also informed of the continued use of crumb rubber infill throughout the United States and in Minnesota. So, for example, crumb rubber is currently being installed at Blake School and by the Wayzata School District. After being reviewed by the Facilities Committee and in accordance with the original project schedule, discussions of the field renovations came before the school board on December 15th and again on January 25th. Around that time, the district received its first communication from a district resident expressing concerns about the use of crumb rubber. To give this resident and anybody else who had concerns an opportunity to be heard on the issue, the board postponed final approval of the field renovations, allowing the public the opportunity to express concerns at 3 separate board meetings. The public engagement on this is absolutely appreciated, and all comments were carefully considered. As is clear from the history I just reviewed, the comments, while passionate, did not raise new issues or provide new information because the board had already undertaken a study of these very issues. The point has been made before, but I want to repeat it. When members of the committee raised questions and concerns, we paused. We reviewed what was being said and considered whether the district should change course. Emails have been sent to us saying that we should delay or use a different infill. In evaluating these concerns, we had to balance the information available to us with the requests being made. The information on the district's website addresses many, if not all, of the questions raised to date, so I'm not going to recap all of them. One of the most significant factors in the decision to go forward is that there are no peer review studies that show a link between crumb rubber infill and claimed health concerns, and there are numerous studies which have concluded that there are no health risks. While there are few, if any, actual peer review studies about the safety and durability, there are numerous reports that have verified the safety and availability. There was a recent legislative hearing in which there was a reference to 90 studies that were conducted that said that crumb rubber was safe. While some have suggested that we should delay going forward until there's more information, that suggestion presents its own set of issues and is presently unworkable. As noted in our information, it's problematic to delay because we will then not have enough fields to meet the existing needs in the fall, much less address the increasing demand. Further, the bids that we have received for the soil work were very favorable, and we wouldn't get the benefit of those bids if we didn't start that work now. In addition, we have no assurances that there will be any more information available by the end of this year, so we have no assurances as to the length of the delay or that the delay will reveal any information that warrants using a different product. We did, in response to concerns, build into the process the option to not go forward with the installation on the West Campus in the event that there were definitive conclusions reached in a timely manner, and that was done in response to community input. The most recent suggestions that have come to the board are that we eliminate artificial turf at the baseball field and then use the savings to purchase what has been described as a natural infill alternative, or to simply substitute a different infill product. In this regard, however, the district has already opted to eliminate the infield baseball turf as part of its scope, schedule, and spending review. Therefore, there are no savings that would be available from that action to apply towards a different kind of infill. More significantly, there is no consensus that alternative infills are better. Depending on the infill, the issues with alternative infills range from safety issues, because the infills are harder physically on the players, to respiratory concerns, to difficulty maintaining the fields, to use issues with rain, and concerns about durability and longevity. We have read the information submitted to us by various individuals regarding choices made by other communities, but that's only one piece of information that we have to review. As I noted, other communities are still electing to go forward with crumb rubber infill and electing to continue using existing fields. Ultimately, the administration, in making its recommendation to the board, and the board, in relying on administration and our outside experts, had to weigh the various pros and cons. What I've just reviewed is not every fact that has been considered, but it does illustrate that the process that's been followed and how we arrived at our decisions and actions in April. As everyone is aware, we have already voted to move forward on the district's recommendations to install artificial turf with a crumb rubber infill. At this point, we've accepted the bids for the soil work, and we've signed contracts for the installation of the fields. Those actions were taken after each related board vote and were done in the normal course. We cannot now cancel those contracts without additional costs to the district. As this summary makes clear, the board's decision was a result of a lengthy, transparent, and deliberative process. Our administration and the board believe that the decision we made is based on the available scientific evidence and is fully consistent with all available guidance from the applicable regulatory agencies such as the EPA and the Minnesota Department of Health. It's consistent with the decisions being made by neighboring districts at the very same time, and it reflects the needs and wishes of families in our district. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking before the board. We do always welcome input. We do listen to what the community says. We just don't always reach a decision that matches what everyone says to us, or what, when I say everyone, we have had people tonight come, some have spoken in favor, some have not. Again, I thank everybody. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wants to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Please don't make her plan from rubber. Please don't. Please rethink it. I want artificial turf, but I don't want from rubber.
I didn't hear anybody say that they wanted to remove anything from the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are on to discussion and reports.
If we can pull up the leadership report, please. Tonight, we'll just give you a quick update on just what's going on in the district and some timely items, including the work on the next-gen construction. This, again, where we're looking at how do we maximize the scope of the project, which we approved in the referendum and in the review and comment with the schedules that we need to match, along with spending, because we have a dollar amount that we have to dedicate and stay within that budget line. Again, part of that spending and scope was to take a look at a 2% value engineering or adjustments in costs, as we encouraged our architects to make sure we challenged the design teams to get absolutely the most they could out of the dreams and hopes that they had for each of the 10 sites. We also recognized that as we rolled that forward and costing that, we probably needed to dial some of that work back. And so the administration and the lead construction team, which is including our architect and construction managers, continue to work on this effort. We worked at the board facilities committee, as well as at the May 2nd board work session, where we talked a lot about those adjustments, and those are being made. We'll continue to make those throughout the project, because we continue to value making sure that we align spending and making sure the spending is maximized along with what the intent of the project was. So we're staying true to the scope of the project, and we're managing the budget. From a scheduling standpoint, the high school construction has begun. Nothing again with the building itself, but a lot of preparatory work is occurring at the high school. This fall, we'll be moving on our elementary sites, looking at doing some bid work, both for the Countryside Edition and the Concord Edition, and also starting to look at the transportation construction that needs to occur. Later this winter, in 2016, we'll begin looking at Normandale Elementary, and that'll cause the district office, which is where some of the space will be, to be moved upstairs. And then in 2017, we'll be bidding out Cornelia and moving Cornelia to the level of response immediately for 2017, and having construction then at those 4 elementary sites, as well as the district office. As we move into the summer of 2017, we'll be heavily working on all of our sites. It's going to be a very busy summer next summer, as both Southview and Valley View will join in, as well as the early childhood construction. This joins the other elementaries, the transportation, as well as the high school, which will be an ongoing project. And then as we move into the fall of 2017, into that school year, we recognize that the high school will be wrapping up its work. Valley View will continue as it moves forward, as will additional projects going then in 2018 being Creek Valley, Highlands, and then moving into the summer, we'll have Creek Valley, Highlands. Southfield will be concluding its work in Valley View. We have a substantial amount of work that blends both construction as well as some of the maintenance projects that we put on hold. We're blending those together. The maintenance projects are using our alternative facilities fund, so it's a different pot of money, as it were. And so we're really making sure that we blend to maximize the efficiency of the projects when we're taking a look at maintenance, things like roof replacements and road replacements and our heating and cooling systems, all those type of things, blending those with the improvements that we want to make on the instructional and safety side. So that's kind of our new schedule. It'll take us into 2018, but we do think it's a good, doable schedule. Again, as we look forward, the middle schools are moving forward with their planning and have another meeting set for later this week. The office, our schematics on the office, district office is being finalized. Transportation is in that design phase, and they're doing some costing. We're also starting to look at the property sale of our current facility. Again, we talked a little bit about what's happening at the high school. We know that in the fall of 2016, the high school commons area will be completed. East Campus, we began work on the earthwork today. We are not pursuing, as the chair mentioned earlier tonight, we're not pursuing the ball field on the lower Coleman Field. That will remain a grass field. We'll make some improvements on that as it relates to drainage, but not going with turf. And then we'll also be doing quite a bit of resurfacing of the parking lots in and around the community center and making those enhancements. Again, that's not construction dollars. That's part of those alternative facility funds. Security plans, we continue to move that forward. We're looking at some temporary facility improvements as it relates to security at our elementaries, and then also making sure that as we move into construction that we have emergency plans in place with the construction that could be going on in and around the school areas. As it relates to next gen, later tonight we're going to be asking the board to take action on some leadership positions. We have a very busy 2016-17, and we're busy right now. At the elementary level, we're bringing in a new reading curriculum, which is going to be very exciting, but it takes a lot of training and a lot of extra efforts, but it's really going to be good for our young people. We're looking at a new master daily schedule for the fall of 2017. We want to work on that. We'll be bringing a new world language into all of our schools, and that again will be new. A lot of planning going on in 16 so we can implement in 17 and finally start exploring the integrated curriculum and how we can continue to grow that forward. So a lot of planning occurring in 2016-17 at the middle level. They too are looking at a new daily schedule as it moves to a 6-8 model. Looking at revamping its courses and curriculum material. They have a design team working on that right now. And we're also going to be expanding and revising our advising program at the middle school. So those things are all in the planning process. The high school is very active. Again, they start May term, and we'll continue to move that forward. The new daily schedule, again, because it's moving to a 9-12 school setting, we're looking at changing courses and curriculum offerings. There, too, we're looking at expanding the advisory program for our students in grades 9 through 12, making the transition of our 9th grade staff up to the high school, and then also doing the planning as it relates to both 9th and 10th grade transitioning in the fall. The district level, we have 2 studies that you're going to take action on. One study will be beginning the school start and end time study. That will take us from May right into the September season. We'll be getting input from parents and from the transportation company, the community, staff. The construction projects will continue to be a priority for us, and then continue to move forward with personalized learning. So all those are major efforts. With that in mind, we talked quite a bit at various settings in the HR committee as well as teaching and learning committee, also at the work session, just about the need to make sure we had enough leadership support to make this all fall together. And so the administration is making some recommendations tonight for an addition of 2 full-time equivalent elementary dean type positions to support our elementary principals and site leadership teams, looking at a .67 middle school design teacher on special assignment, or TOSA, to help with some of that work. 8 middle school leadership stipends, so we'd have some teachers working beyond their regular time to support their work and developing some of the programming necessary. The high school already has a team in place. They're part teachers that have some release time during their school day, and so we'd carry that forward one more year, and also the May term coordinator. With that in mind, there's some funding related to that that we'll ask the board to take action on. The majority of that funding is coming through internal funds that we have, but we will be seeking an additional $185,000 of one-time funds from the board. We do feel, knowing where we sit with the budget for this current year, that we'll have funds available to help us carry that through. But we know with this in mind that we can be successful in implementing those initiatives that I talked previously about. But there'll be action at that later in the evening. As it relates to leadership positions, we want to welcome Tim Anderson, who will be the new Southview Middle School principal. Tim is already engaged, helping with some volunteering and spending some time with Dr. Bess Russell, who is the current middle school principal, but Tim will move into full swing in the very near future, as will Katie Mahoney. Katie is going to be the new Highlands principal. She was previously a teacher at Highlands and then went to 2 different schools to complete her continued leadership experience, and she'll be coming back to Edina Public Schools, and we welcome her as the new Highlands principal. We're in the stages where tomorrow we'll be interviewing 8 finalists for the Valley View Assistant Middle School Principal, and expect to have that position in place before the end of the month. We are wrapping the school year of 2015-16 around the edge here. It's June 3rd. Graduation is June 4th. But our summer programming begins immediately June 7th, so it is not a summer vacation time in our school district, as the community education, many of our additional programming options for our students all begin right away on Monday, June 7th. It'll be a very active time in our schools for learning as we gear up for the upcoming school year. And that concludes the leadership report. Any questions or comments on that? Otherwise, we can move this forward.
Any questions?
I'm curious if you would say some more about the 2 FTEs for the elementary school dean.
Okay, so with the implementation of the 2 reading, the reading curriculum, as well as we're in our 2nd year of a writing curriculum, so we want additional support to help our teachers in the implementation of that. We're looking at daily schedules, looking at implementing the new world language program. And those are all significant initiatives that we want to make sure we have enough support for our principals in that work. Our principals need to be the instructional leaders, so we want to maybe have some support as far as getting them out of some of that day-to-day management efforts. Our elementaries are large schools, and so it's a busy schedule for our leadership. And our leadership teams at the site level just can't carry all those duties along with the principals. So that additional support, we'd be splitting up probably 3 and 3 in some fashion, where one dean-type position would take on 3 schools and work collaboratively with those 3 schools and leadership team, and then one would work with the other 3.
How long do you see this going on?
This is a 1 year.
1 year only.
Yeah, it's a these are all 1 year. These are all 1 year leadership positions into that transition.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Moving through to policy review. Regina, are you taking us through the
I will take us through
minor number
policy.
of policies there?
Minor number.
Seems like
We're poised to move a few forward. For discussion items, the most extensive recommendations for edits are in policy 620, the course credit for learning. Policy committee had a lot of extensive discussion about meeting the needs of all students and making sure that students had the opportunity for right matching a course that was at their particular level. And that's the intent behind this policy, is to offer alternatives to students beyond our regular curriculum. So the language that exists in this policy suggests some rewording for clarity and process, and the appendices are, the introduction is rewritten, and again, that text is rewritten for clarifying exactly what happens and in which order. So I just want to pause on 620 to see if there are any questions or suggestions that people would like us to take back to the policy committee.
I had a couple of questions when reading this policy. One, I didn't see an option, because we're just talking 912. Is that correct, Regina?
For course credit for learning, essentially this is a 912
Right, it's for
because
high
it's
school
what
credit.
it's what counts toward graduation credits. So yes.
So when a lot of our courses revolve around AP, I'm wondering if a student were to take an AP test, say before the upcoming course that they would need to take, and pass it at the levels that we've discussed in here, which I believe is 80%, would that qualify them to receive credit by assessment?
Randy, is that a question that you can answer? Because I don't know, or we can take it back to the committee regarding, and I'll just repeat the question too. If a student takes an AP test prior to taking a high school course, can they receive the credit for the course if they pass the AP test?
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's actually come up in the time that I've been here. It seems rational, but I think we'd need to take that one back and talk about that. We do have some students who take AP tests and never take the course, and of course they get that credit potentially to transfer at a university level. So,
But do they get the credit counted on their high school
On the high school transcript?
I'm not
don't know
aware
the
of any situations where we've done that or needed to do that, but I can take that back and we'll take a look at that at the high school with the counselors.
Okay, because I think we should take a look at that, because I mean, I was reading through all the options of ways that they can demonstrate, and that one seemed to me one that should be considered as a way to demonstrate proficiency. The other question I had, we've talked a lot about Phi-Ed, and currently, I know as a district, we have required 2 Phi-Ed credits for graduation, although the state requirement is 1. Outside of changing that, what about allowing particularly athletes or kids who participate in activities that more than show that they have athletic abilities, and could we not count that if you're on the football team, the soccer team, whatever it is, you run marathons on a regular basis, could we not have something that would qualify them to not have to take one of those Phi-Ed credits?
I think all of that falls under that umbrella of being a competency-based system. And so part of our discussion in the 912 program team will be to identify those competencies in areas where students can show competency, and essentially, if they have the competency, then they don't need to do the course or the requirement. So part of that is clarifying what are the competencies for these courses, what are the ways that students can achieve and show those competencies. This policy that you just discussed is an important one, because what we're saying through that policy is if the students already have that competency, then they get that credit. So that policy is guidance for us in that realm. And moving forward, that's one of the conversations we're having with the 912 team is what are those pathways or avenues that students can use to show competency, and that will affect course-taking behaviors down the road.
Okay. And then the last question I had was just around this concept of a test for receiving credit. And, you know, I know that it said that their teachers could participate in helping to put that together. I'm wondering what other oversight there would be with that to make sure that we're not creating tests that make it, that would cause a student to pause and say, it's not worth it, I'll just take the class. You know, and I noticed that we had something in here that said the test had to be no more than 4 hours, which I'm not sure how we came up with 4 hours. I'd love to hear where that came from, but I don't want us to ever discourage a student from trying if they really feel that a course is not something that they need and they can show proficiency.
Agreed. The discussion around the 4 hours came out of looking at what are those maximum windows for things like AP tests. And some of our longer AP tests are about 3 hours and 45 minutes. Oftentimes ACT test plus the writing is in that time window. So trying to give our teachers a similar time window to create an assessment process that gives quality evidence that students have learned everything that they need to demonstrate for that course. So thinking up to 4 hours would be a reasonable time window to be able to show evidence of all the things that has to occur in a one-year course. And the other part of improving the assessments as part of the credit by assessment process is to make sure that those assessments are valid and are reliable and are the same assessments that are used for the course. Now that part of it has been a journey because we haven't had common summative assessments for many of our courses, but that's the direction that we're headed. And so when a student does credit by assessment, we want to be able to use the common summative assessment for that process. So that's being developed and these courses as the requests come in.
Great, thanks, Randy.
You know, and going to that 4-hour, we at our last policy meeting talked about that at length, and most of us on the board had agreed that 3 hours is what most AP tests are doing. It's what the AP literature test does, and it seemed reasonable. And so I'm a little disappointed to still see it there. Maybe it was just a disconnect as messages are getting back to you. There may be a need for you at some policy meetings where, you know, we're diving more into things that are in your lane, just so we don't have that disconnect. But I'm not comfortable with the 4 hours being a time limit for a high school assessment when 3 hours gets you out of a college course for numerous courses. I don't see why we need to have our students there for 4 hours.
Yeah, we just looked at what are some of the maximum time windows for some of the AP tests, and so that was the maximum time window. So we just applied that to the opportunity here. I think the most important part of the process is to make sure that the assessment is a valid, reliable assessment, and it provides high-quality evidence that students have learned the requirements for the class. Now, in many situations, that may be less than 4 hours, but surely not going to be more.
Well, the example you used, ACT plus writing, you know, think about how many things are being tested, evaluated, and that's sort of a whole student. That one score summarizes almost your whole high school career sometimes, the way some colleges use it. And it's looking at your ability to write, it's looking at math, it's looking at other aspects of your education. It's a whole aspect. We're talking about one course, credit by assessment. So that was part of our conversation at the policy level as well. And most disturbing, the history of some of these courses testing out. Do you remember, Lisa, how many hours the longest was?
It was long.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and we're not
And that's
talking
what
4
we're
or
trying
5.
to
That wasn't
fix
even the
through
halfway
the
point.
process.
Yeah.
And so to say we just need to make sure we have the test be a grid assessment of where the student is, in my mind, that leaves the boundary too open, which is why 3 hours as an upper limit seemed reasonable.
And
Yeah,
I think
I understand. If you look at some of the other assessment processes, like take a program like International Baccalaureate and look at their assessment processes. The students there actually have to show multiple times during the year a demonstration of understanding. And if you added up all of the assessments through the IB process, which has a very rigorous assessment process, and they have to have a very, very rigorous assessment process because they have to guarantee that no matter where you took the course, you have a consistent result. But it is many more than 4 hours for something like IB to demonstrate that learning, and that's per course. So again, I think the most important part is the quality of the evidence in that time window.
But you're talking about during a course for that.
Right.
Sure, and if you count formative assessments, almost every hour a student has every day in a given course could be looked at as valuable time. It sounds like an argument to say there should be no way to test out of a course to get credit by assessment. But that's certainly not the conversation we're having, and I don't think we should compare credit by assessment length of tests with the cumulative, formative, and summative testments, or even just summative, over the course of a whole semester. It's just not, it doesn't seem like that's a helpful comparison.
So I would suggest taking the comments back for discussion, determine whether there's a reasonable basis for the recommendation that is within the policy, and then move it back to the board.
Which is what we will do. Are there any other comments on 620 other than what we've covered?
No, the only thing I would mention as I reviewed this again is when I look at, for example, the types of assessment that this might include, which it could include a formal written test, a performance-based assessment, a demonstration of skills, an interview, presentation, exhibition, or written composition. My concern is that the way it is written, it could be all of those things and a 4-hour test. So again, I go back to Sarah's comment that this shouldn't be set up as a hurdle that is set up so that no student would ever try to do this. And because if that's the case, we shouldn't even have it. So I think, to me, that has to be tightened up. So we don't have, for example, a science class where you have to do 8 of these things, and a math class where you only have to do 1. It needs to be tightened up for me. And I would echo the AP question. We mentioned in the policy that a student who satisfactorily completes an advanced placement or international baccalaureate course, or PSEO, satisfies the requirements of corresponding to that course of study. So if they have that, it satisfies. So it would seem to me that an AP test would satisfy that as well. So if we don't believe that's the case, then we have to rework that as well. So those are 2 of the comments that I would echo.
Which what I'm hearing is it sounds like we do believe that that is the case, but this is all material that needs to be talked out back in policy.
We have to flesh out a little bit more.
We need
Yeah,
to do
the
more.
AP thing, I just wasn't sure if it meant that you didn't have to take the course, you could just take the test. That's where I was confused, so that's why I wanted clarity on that one.
Okay, I'm going to move on to 9/11. Use of volunteers in school. Here, first I want to thank Stacy Geyer because she's spent a lot of time streamlining language in this policy and in the subsequent policies for clarity and to make sure that they are easier to navigate. Any questions on 9/11? Yes?
Yes, I do.
Yes. Yeah.
I was reading through this policy as well, and some of the concerns that came up for me, and it really for me is more around the elementary level where you have much more parent involvement in the classroom. And it can be anything from, I'm going to volunteer for my teacher, for my student's teacher once a week to do math, or the room parents are putting a party together and they've asked for volunteers and I've raised my hand, yep, I'll come in and, help with the party. So when I was looking at the background check part of this, currently from the way I've seen things happen in my experience is we're not doing background checks for just the kind of here and there type of stuff. Of course, anytime that we would go to camp or anything like that, parents have to get a background check because they're going to be away with students overnight. So this seemed a little bit as though we're going possibly a new direction unless we haven't been following things to a T in the past. I just kind of wanted to better understand if we're going to put up walls for parent involvement with this process.
We'll ask.
Okay.
Any other notes on 9/11? Okay, 400 series. So there's several policies in the 400 series. All of these address personnel. I'm just going to select several that really had no substantial changes. 401, 402, 404, 405, and 407. Really didn't have anything substantial. Where there are a few more notes to take a look at is 403, discipline of school district employees. There's additional language added for clarification of intent, and then procedures for administering the policy are moved to an appendix, which is more standard just for policy format. And 406, public and private personnel data. The changes here comply with Minnesota statute updates. So those new updates are referenced at the end of the policy, and that's the primary driving force behind those changes. But looking at this particular group of 400 series policies, are there any questions that we should take back before we move for action next month?
The question I have is whether, given the recent Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Education, we should be considering adding gender identity to the list of protected classes.
In
401.
In 401, thank you. I will ask about that. Any others?
Just a minor comment, Regina.
Mhm.
On 403, the new appendix, maybe putting the title of what that's linked to. Right now, it doesn't have, it doesn't
link
state
it
what
to
the
the
policy.
title?
Yeah.
We can do that.
In case someone received that, you don't know what it's connected with.
Makes sense. And let's see, that's it for the discussion items. Thank you.
Okay, no other questions on policy. We will move on to our first action item. The first is the early childhood schematic design proposal. Can I get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, and who is our presenter here? Anybody going to do a summary? Susan?
This is similar. There's no changes since the update that we provided for you last month in terms of the early childhood schematic design. It represents just those big rocks on the first floor of how we want to reconfigure the first floor for a comprehensive early childhood space, to include some security updates and some integrated classroom spaces for our early childhood special ed, our early childhood family ed, and the Family Center and our school readiness programs. So we would be moving forward with that as a schematic design, which will then allow us to move into that next phase of design development with user groups.
We did see this before. Are there any questions?
I just had a general question. Is the layout of the rooms, I'm assuming, are interchangeable to a certain extent if you have more threes classes or more pre-K classes, that things will be able to move around and flex within the spaces that you're creating?
At this stage, with the schematic design, we haven't articulated those specifically. We do want to make sure that we're building in for flexibility as program enrollments change, but we've sort of when we've done with the schematic design is gone through and articulated how many spaces we know we need based on current program, and then what does it allow us for growth. And but we haven't particularly said this is automatically going to be a 3-4 program or something, but it will allow us some flexibility. Obviously, I would say that given the range of the programs, some are not going to be as flexible as others. Those that are built more for parent ed won't necessarily align with those that would be built for our 3-year-old programs kind of thing.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. On to the next action item, and that is the guiding change plan for daily schedules. Can I get a motion to approve that?
So, second.
And Rick, are you on that one?
Yeah, previously we discussed this at our April board meeting. We also had some discussion a little bit at the work session as well as at our teaching and learning committee. Again, this is a process for studying our daily schedules, and the important thing here is that we match up our elementary, middle, and high school so that as we look at the schedule adjustments, we want to make sure we have funding that can sustain any change in staffing models that would come out of these three. Our high school and middle school have already begun their work on looking at design models. Our elementary has also begun their work. They're probably not quite as far along, but it's a blend thing where you're designing program and also trying to get schedule in place because they work together. And so this would allow us to frame that. We would be coming back to the board sometime this summer with an update. Again, we would expect to have action on this in the October-November timeframe. So this would be new schedules for the fall of 2017.
Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next action item is the guiding change plan for district start-end times. Can I get a motion, please?
So, second.
You're up again.
Yep, this was, again, something that we discussed at the April meeting. We briefly talked about it at the May 2nd meeting, also at the policy level. We had some discussion on this. There was additions put into this guiding change document or the study process, simply because of the complexity as it relates to everything from where some schools start early to provide students with additional opportunities for help or breakfast programming. We also have to partner with some of the private contract services that we have. So we just added some more language around this study. We are hoping to do some contacts, do some survey samples with parents on the interests and priorities they have. We'll also be having a forum where we get input before recommendations are drawn early next fall. Again, this would be something we'd likely bring back to the board for further discussion, and action on this would likely be an October-November plan as well. This is, again, everything's in place for next year. There's no significant changes in the calendar in the school start and end time, but this would come into play for the fall of 2017. So this does give us plenty of lead time. Also, we're working closely with a couple other school districts that are doing the same type of work. Burnsville is in the fall of 2016 is actually moving into that, and we're working with them closely to see how they did their planning, again, to help us in our work, and they can also be that double back check to make sure we're not forgetting something as we get into these efforts.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the guiding change plan for district start and end times, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Next, we're on to the 2016-17 leadership positions. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And this is, I think, what you just spent a little bit of time on.
I did.
that
I
is-
talked about it at the leadership report. Again, I can't stress the importance of making sure that we have enough leadership efforts. Again, this is what we have learned from other school districts, how they have gone into these type of changes, be it the Osseo School District or the Burnsville School District or other districts at a national level, West Side, outside of Omaha. But when you're trying to make this type of progress in your strategic work and making this kind of change to make sure that we are shaping learning going forward, we need to make sure we have some of this one-time support available. It's been a very effective tool for us when we've been piloting projects through the strategic planning process. Now that's at the time when we're really looking at design and implementation, and we think this extra support will serve us well. Again, the majority of this funding is coming from us, what we can do in reallocation of current funding, everything from strategic planning to relooking at some of our staffing funds as well as teaching and learning funds. But there is a one-time funding request for dollars out of our current budget. It would be carryover funds from this year, tune of $185,000. So would ask the board to support this. Again, we're looking at an opportunity where we can bring some teachers who are close to the action, but also have some leadership interests and probably some talents built up that we can bring them on onto this work to help us in our planning.
Any questions or discussion?
I was just going to point out that Rick did contact all of the HR committee members and run this by us. My core questions to Rick were, what does Margot think for the financing of it? And, again, it supports the core work that we're trying to do as a district. So if that supports that, I think it's important, and I believe Margot gave it a thumbs up, so.
That was the last piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I just want to note that as we've watched all the work that administration is doing, trying to get all these things lined up for 2017, we've asked you a number of times whether you need additional funding for positions. And so now that you said yes, are we all in favor of voting to approve the 2016-17 leadership positions? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the high school Upper Commons furniture package. Margot, Susan, one of you want to take this one? Oh, wait, we got a motion to approve the Edina High School Upper Commons furniture package.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
I'll start with the process part, and then Margot can talk about the dollars part. How's that? So as you know, we had a task force of staff throughout the January and February that looked at the variety of different student furniture options that we had available, from the earliest little kiddos all the way up to the high school students. And so with that, we are moving forward. The first one, we always said that we wanted to make sure that the furniture arrives in conjunction with completion of construction. So the first completion of construction will be those upper commons that you heard about earlier from Dr. Dressen. And so we have some furniture options that the district secondary task force put in place in terms of, here's some options that we can choose from, and then the site selected those based on those options. And so we do understand them to be in line with what we're looking at district-wide and in line with budget. I'll turn it over to Margot to talk about the purchasing.
All three of the vendors the purchases are made through the state contractor, a cooperative purchasing type of arrangement. So again, similar to many of our purchases, the bidding or the quoting has already occurred, and then we're doing it through this partnership. And it's within the FF&E budget.
Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the Edina High School Upper Commons furniture package, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Looks like we have a series of technology purchases for, I wonder if we could combine these all into one action item. The purchase of Lenovo Chromebooks, purchase of desktop computers, purchase of desktop computers for PLTW, purchase of iPads, purchase of laptops from CWDW, purchase of subscription to Microsoft, purchase of Lenovo ThinkPad. Maybe we can talk about all these together. Can I get a motion to consolidate all of those?
I would move to consolidate those items 1 through 7 under technology purchases, sorry.
And can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of consolidating those 7 into one, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're now can I get a motion to approve the 1 through 7 technology purchases?
Second.
All right. Now, so Steve, just simple form, all 7, go.
Every year, good evening, board. Every year I come to you with the purchases for desktop computers, Chromebooks, laptops. These are predominantly used for our students and our staff. They're guided by our technology vision. The Chromebooks are to help satisfy the e-learning squared initiative, which will fulfill getting a cart of Chromebooks for every 3rd grade and ensuring that there's sufficient Chromebooks for our secondary schools as well. The desktop, laptops, and tablets are for teacher refresh. Desktops are on a 5-year refresh, and the laptops and tablets are on a 4-year refresh. We're seeing a pretty interesting evolution at our secondary schools where our teachers are really going mobile and starting to use laptops and moving around with those laptops. So they take those laptops to professional development, to PLCs, as well as work in their classrooms. Finally, the Microsoft subscription allows us to ensure that we have Microsoft operating system, Microsoft Office, and virus protection and email for the district. The other benefit is for students and staff. They're able to receive Microsoft Office for free. So one of the benefits of that package. I bring these to you this time of year so that we can start planning for purchases July 1st.
And these are all within your budget?
Yes.
This was presented at Finance Committee, and it's all within, because actually Steve did a whole presentation on his, the budget specifically around technology, which was the referendum that we passed in the fall of 2011. And this all falls within that.
I just have one question. First, I want to thank you and your team for all of the work on organizing the technology. It's moving through quickly. We have a lot of staff and students adopting what is new for them, so there's been a lot of support needed, so thank you for that. My question is about the Chromebooks. I know we've had some issues in the past with the durability of Chromebooks and a little background on that.
Absolutely, and thank you for asking. We consistently evaluate the Chromebooks to make sure that they're going to provide the best product and value for our students for learning, but that they're also going to be durable. What I'm happy to report this year is that the Chromebooks we're purchasing actually will come with a 3-year warranty with them, and so that they will be covered for any defects from the products. Also, as next month, we'll be looking to discuss the Best Buy web store and what the parents will be purchasing. And in that one, we're looking to get it built into the price. So at the same price that our parents been paying in the past, a 3-year accidental damage warranty for those parents. That means 3 years, if they drop it, break a screen or something like that, it is covered under warranty. So it's, I think competition and I think technology is starting to continue to push the price down, but the quality still remains strong on the Chromebooks.
Thank you.
That warranty thing was a huge thing. As having a child who is on her 3rd year of the Chromebook and having to pay, I mean, I chose as a parent to buy the warranty when we bought this. To have it included now, I'm really impressed. So thank you for doing that for our families and students.
And Steve, you're getting feedback, I take it, from people that the use of these has been effective, and you anticipate continued effective use?
Indeed. I believe a couple months ago I did a board presentation. We do survey our parents, staff and students about the use of e-learning squared, the use of technology, and it's been very positive. I think numbers were 80% of the students gave e-learning square a favorable rating, and 70-some% of the parents gave it a favorable rating as well. But we still monitor it. One of the topics that we were talking about is just making sure that we understand what the needs of the technology are, and working with the teachers to ensure that the technology is going to be utilized for instruction and be utilized as a positive aspect for instruction, and again, continue to mitigate the negative aspects of technology.
Are there any other questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the technology purchases listed 1 through 7, Chromebooks, desktop computers for PLTW, iPads, laptops, Microsoft subscription, and ThinkPad tablets, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next agenda item is policy review. We are going to take these separately. Can I get a motion to approve the policy 513?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Regina, you want to walk us through this? I'm sure we saw this last month.
We did. We saw this April 11th. There have been no notes or changes since that meeting.
Are there any questions tonight about policy 513? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving policy 513, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Next, can I get a motion for approving policy 538?
So moved.
Second.
Regina, can you walk us through this? We also saw this last month.
We did see this on April 11th, and there are no changes to this since we saw it. I just want to reiterate some of the same comments that we shared from the policy committee, and I believe these are comments that other board members have made over time. We continue to support field trips. We also recognize how complicated this policy is to put together and to implement. So we're grateful for the work of staff members who have put together requests. We have many that have come into tonight's packet that give us a heads up on some planned trips. Our main goal is concerns about equity, and that includes financial equity, equity of access and opportunity for field trips. We recognize that there's confusion about non-district sponsored field trips and which are district sponsored, so our goal moving forward is to continue to clarify that, and safety for students. So we've had, thankfully, we've had non-incident field trips. So that's a good thing, but that's because of a lot of careful planning by staff and chaperones. So we do appreciate that. We do want to bring this policy forward for approval tonight because we recognize the need for people to plan for 16, 17 and going forward. So that is why it's before us this evening.
All right. Are there any questions?
I could just add that, I'd like to add the thought that this was put together by a task force of staff members who are very involved in field trips. So they had a lot of influence on some of the modifications because they're often the users of it. We also had legal counsel take a look at this. And finally, we did seek input between this reading and the last reading for staff to come and share their thoughts and insights as well. So, and they were supportive of the changes.
Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? No, go ahead.
No, I have questions. I still have
Quicker.
concerns around this policy. I appreciate Regina's comments that it's a work in progress. I'd like to make sure that we continue to review this policy. Again, as I was reading through this, other things came to light. You know, we have the definition of instructional trips versus supplementary trips. And speaking for this parent, I've yet to have a child go on a field trip that didn't cost money. Because no matter what we do, if they have to leave campus on a vehicle, which is a bus, they have to pay for it. So unless they're walking to a park, there is nothing that is truly an instructional trip that is covered by school funds. So now granted, many of our field trips, particularly in elementary school, are very inexpensive overall, but as we've talked about already previously, that there are many other trips though that get very expensive very quickly. And I get the supplementary and the optional, but some of my questions go back to that I really want us to continue to wrestle with is, you know, how are we deciding what is sanctioned and unsanctioned? I really think we need to get clear language around that and how we determine that. And also, at the very beginning of the policy, we talk about educational competencies, which I think is important, but there's times when a field trip or a camp, you know, how are we asking them to define that? Is there a particular subject area, you know, just some clarity around that? And also, I mean, there are field trips that our students do take that I would consider, I don't know what you want to call it, a fun trip, you know, a celebration trip, how about that? At the end of the year that I don't really feel would qualify as something where they could list out educational competencies specifically, but it is done to celebrate our students or something that's fun. So I just think we want to be sure that we're requesting this, but we know that it's always attainable, or, you know, are there times when they can, you know, step outside of that specifically? And then the other thing around sanctioned versus non-sanctioned, when I was reading some of the language about sub-costs, so if a teacher will be out of class and a substitute teacher is needed, I thought I read that that was not covered by the school district. And I was wondering if we're being consistent with that always?
I'd have to,
So that's for a non-sponsored?
I think that's the non-district sponsored field trips, and I would want to go back and reread to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly, but in a non-district sponsored field trip, that would be the case. Otherwise.
Teacher pays sub to be in their room.
On a non-sponsored,
If it-
or the company that's overseeing the project?
Okay.
Well, that gets to some of this conversation about what's school-sponsored and not. But if it is school-sponsored, then backfilling for the adult in the campus makes sense to be part of our school district. And if it's not school-sponsored, that doesn't make sense to have that burden be on the district. If it's a trip where the teacher says, I'm just not going to be able to be in school because of a trip that's not going through the district. The conversation about what's
I'm just wondering if there's
sponsored and
still
what's
gray
not
area
sponsored
there.
continues, and that's one of the things that was holding up this policy, as well as the access question. The reason it's here tonight is because not having a policy was creating a lot of problems for those who are trying to make plans for the upcoming school year.
So I wonder,
And I do understand that. And so even the field trips that we just approved tonight, I'm assuming that they worked under the old policy even prior to this, so.
so perhaps we could just put this on an earlier re-review cycle.
Actually, it's always on. It never goes off.
Never goes
So
off.
This one never goes off. And with the reasons that we've stated tonight. So this will continue to be discussed throughout, you know, the coming months by the policy committee. It doesn't cycle off. But we've all stated we need to approve this so we have updated language for the current year.
Okay, thanks.
So that people can submit any suggested language changes to the policy committee.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, just a technical
Mhm.
question. In C2, there's a reference to the extended trip coordinator as stated in section 5 below. And I think section
Do we
5
not
got,
tie it? Oh, did 5 go away?
I think 5 may have gone away. And it's in the appendix anyway. So I just,
I'll take a look at it. Thank you. We'll
Friendly
take a look.
Yeah. So that would be a friendly amendment to tie those together?
sure, so moved.
All right. Are there any other questions, discussion? So with that friendly amendment, all in favor of approving policy 538, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, policy 538 has been approved. Do you have any wrap-up information?
But we'd move to closed session and then.
Oh, wait, we added
Oh, yeah,
H.
sorry.
We added H. Yep. Unrequested leave recommendations. Can I get a motion to approve, motion to approve the unrequested leave recommendations?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Could I get a second?
Second.
So we had this last month, right?
Yes, there are two notices. So one is a formal notice indicating that these two teachers are on unrequested leave because they are tenured and we do not have any current positions. They have an opportunity to come before the board to ask any questions. They did not, so now you're taking formal action. So
Okay.
that's the reason.
So are there any questions from the board or discussion? Sarah, I think we do a roll call on this one.
Okay. Gharbi?
Aye.
Goldstein?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
Neville?
Aye.
O'Brien? Patzloff?
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman?
Aye. All right. Before we go to closed session, I want to note that we have recognition of staff listed. Paul Andres is received a recognition. Nathaniel Lindley received the recognition, and Jane Tierney received the recognition for their work on behalf of the district. And now we need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to state statute.
179A.14 subdivision 3 and district policy 206.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are now in closed session.
We're going to move to room 348, then we'll come back here to adjourn the meeting. To open and
Open and close.
Right.